Okay, this is a video for the Thieaudio Legacy 9. This is a hybrid with a dynamic driver and 8 balanced armatures. It's a fantastic configuration in my opinion. And then they stuck it in wood and polished it and lacquered it. It's all wood, the caps, the shell. It's absolutely stunning. It's beautiful. Absolutely beautiful. Fucking love it. About $5.50. I strongly recommend it if it's like you want to just know what do you really think. I think it's absolutely fantastic. I pulled out the Empire Ears Legend X to compare because this is a set that I bought 3 times. You've seen 2 other versions on it, and then I never did one with the gold. So there's 3. If you type Empire Ears Legend X on my channel, you'll see 2 videos. One's got a black cap with like the EE logo, and then another one's got, I think it's got the wings on it on both sides. Can't recall. That was the first one that I got. And then this is the Japanese edition gold. So money talks, and I've spent a lot of it on the Legend X because I'm a big fan of it. But it is a giant V, and if you ever thought, I'd really like that with maybe a little bit less bass, a little bit less treble, and a little bit more vocals, you got it. You got it right here, and you got it in a wood shell, and you got it for a lot less money. This red is the Legend X, this set right here. 16 to 17 dB elevation. It's absolutely just getting into the mids not that well, and then it's got a spike at 8K. Again, I've paid for this set, and I paid for a set prior to it and prior to that, so I'm a fan of it. But there's been times when I thought this is very much genre specific set. The L9 has got 6-7 dB. It's got 10 dB of its own, but it's getting into the mids, which is the green section technically, right in time, and then it's taken its elevation at 1K, which is very typical, just like the Empire Ears and like many sets, peanut gain, and then it's taken its unique course, and it's got what's important to me, which is some AK post AK info, because this is giving me the completion of the cymbal strike, so that when you hear a strike, the fundamental part and the harmonic extension is natural. And the cymbal strikes on the Legend X are prominent via this spike right here, and you can notice when you A-B this set or you listen to another set that doesn't have a big peak right here. So as much as I love the Empire Legend X, I've always said it's very genre specific. It's in my S tier because it's the ultimate, dude, I just want to have fun. Don't tell me about the heights and widths. Just give me something from my library. I love the same stuff you do. I would go with Legend X with the caveat that vocals they're not going to be put on the best pedestal you've ever heard. I've always been saying that, and people know that when they've got this much money to spend on IMs. This will do vocals better. Let me start with, so Picture Me Rollin'. It's got the mix deck triangle. You can go listen to that if you want. I'd really be happy if you listen to what I talk about music wise, because it's the absolute context along with the graph. The elevation on the Empire Ears shows itself because that is more prominent, whereas on this set it sounds more normal, like what I usually listen to. It's part of the mix. It's not jumping out, and it's focused more on the right channel than it is on the left channel. It sounded perfectly placed. Tupac sounded good. He sounded a little bit back on the Empire Ears, but I got used to that. But listening to this A and B, and I'm thinking these are better for vocals. These are not vocal sets, but compared to that they are. Aerosmith, No More, No More. I'm listening for 3 things. Here's a trippy thing also. There's 2 versions here. This is the DSD version, and this is the regular FLAC version. The DSD version, maybe because the Army settings, really drops my volume down. I got to really power up to get it, so I went ahead and used the FLAC version for this, just to be clear. So I'm going to click on this one instead of this one over here. Listening to No More, No More, I got 3 things that I'm looking for. One is Steven Tyler's vocals. He's slightly back in the mix, older, mid quality. It's not one of the highest quality, but it's good, and I'm very familiar with it. He sounds perfect. He sounds absolutely where he's supposed to be. The cymbal strikes on the L9 sound, I said this before, cymbals are a big part of the kit of all of the music I listen to, and if that is not done right, then what is the point? There's none. And it's the same with sub bass roll off. What's the point? Everything I've got in my library that I listen to, this reviewer, has sub bass. If something doesn't play it, like the Sundaras, I was talking about headphones yesterday, what's the point? I'm not going to hate, but there's no point for me. I'm not giving up a part of the frequency spectrum for shits and giggles. It ain't happening. On this set, I'm not giving up anything. The So Steven Tyler sounds good. The hi-hat strikes sound perfect. They're not tizzy. They're not too high. Listening to the Empire ears, they are, but I got used to that and thought that's fun and that's like a club sound, but it's not natural when I compare it with the L9. So graphs, they got too much influence. They got not enough. Depends on who you talk to. They do reflect what you listen to, though, especially when there's something that's slightly offensive or really pleasing. You might be able to pick out what that is. So the cymbal strikes, Steven Tyler, and also the piano, which covers the entire audible range from 20 hertz, which is not really that audible for a lot of people, let's say 30 hertz, all the way up to, let's say 16 kilohertz. The piano covers all of that. So you can get all of that back, and it does that really, really well. More than the Empire Ears is, it kind of tricks you. It's expensive. It's from a famous company. It's very exciting, but there are things lacking when it starts to be critically evaluated with stuff that is tuned better. Better is a kind of a opinion, but I like vocals. I think probably most of you do too. So in that sense, this is clearly over that set. Since You Gone, the cars, the beginning where the drums and the tapping, everything came in perfect, sounded good. I listened to Pink Floyd On the Run. I wanted to get a sense of space because when sets have soft V's, so I think I was talking about Cars, Since You're Gone. This is really a rough jump cut. My battery died. Sorry. The tapping at the beginning of that sounds really, really good. Very, very good. So the car sounds great, and Rick Ocasek's vocals sound good. Like I said, the graph is reflecting good mids, typical Pina gain. Nothing jarring there. Biggest thing of note would be the elevation of the bass, but it isn't the thing that it would be interfering with for me, which is my library is filled with everything you're looking at. I don't listen to instrumental type stuff at all. Everything I listen to has vocals. It's not getting in the way of anybody. Not getting in the way of Stevie Nicks, not getting in the way of Rick Ocasek, Steven Tyler, Tupac Shakur, Annie Lennox, Ozzy Osbourne. They're all sounding very nice and very pleasant. Getting back to the music. Pink Floyd On the Run. This was kind of proving what I thought about the fact that maybe the RME settings I have to adjust because it's, I think, kicking down when it plays a DSD. Oh God, holy crap, save me. Here we go. It did the same thing on this. I just kept powering through, but when I was listening to this, I was almost made a critical mistake thinking that this was something that was related to the elevated bass. It's actually not. I've got another version of this. But On the Run is being used for the rocket ships that go from left to right in the back. Some people say that's an airplane. No, that's a stage show that they had. And the crash at the very end, go listen to that stuff that's panning from left to right behind you, virtually behind you. That's not an airplane, holy crap, that I've ever seen. Especially not in the 1970s. That sounds great, and that's kind of like Dr. Chesky's left-right test where the guy walks around behind you from left. I'm on your left side, and he's banging a drum and something, or bell, and then he walks around. The audio equivalent in rock and roll 70s would be On the Run by Pink Floyd. If you want to get a sense of, how far to the virtual left and right can you catch something before it seems to disappear, this would be a great track to do that. Someone just mentioned in my comment section, why don't you mention that, and also the left channel beep on Michael Jackson, Want to Be Starting Something, on the left side, minute 27 seconds to minute 33 seconds, it's a hee-hoo kind of. The first beep is a little bit louder than the second one, and the second one is a little longer than the first one. Total life is about 1.5 to 2 seconds. It's very subtle. A lot of stuff doesn't pick it up. This L9 doesn't pick it up, but most stuff doesn't. You got to have really boarded tuning and enough emphasis in the right spot in the treble to get that. And headphones, you usually can't get that, so that's not a big deal. But the virtual stage, as told by On the Run, is quite nice on this. So you don't get what you might get with the Legend X, which is this very high 8K, and then this huge bass right here, which has a virtual psychoacoustic sense of creating, and people say in a nice way, it's like being in a club. That's a polite way of saying narrow stage. But That's kind of cool, especially when you listen to certain music, but at some point that gets to be unacceptable, so it's kind of genre specific. And listening with this and that set, this was much more not genre specific. I could listen to Alice in Chains, Eurythmics, Aerosmith, Tupac Shakur. None of it sounded like, well, oh, this wouldn't be the best set for that. It all sounded really good. Eurythmics, Sweet Dreams. I'm going to do a video about J River because this is happening ever since they came out with their new version. This is happening. Interesting, isn't it, when they release an update that you need to pay for, that suddenly this version is becoming less stable. I got 64 gigs of RAM. You don't need that. Sorry. ABC. Do you really need to see this? Yeah, you do. Eurythmics, Greatest Hits. This is a good thing because I don't listen to EDM or other like music, low frequency centric, but not with a bass guitar or a kick drum. And Sweet Dreams by Eurythmics is like I think it's like an organ. It's a deck, mostly keyboard generated low frequency experience, and it sounds excellent on this. This doesn't have the same properties as a balanced armature, which has got a faster to the borderline of being unnatural, whereas this sounds, kick drum and bass on this sounds fantastic. And on the rare occasion where I listen to something that's kind of techno-ish, which would be Sweet Dreams, close as I get to that, I thought it sounded quite appealing. And Annie Lennox sounds really good. And there's backing vocals behind her too that were clearly audible. So was having a good time. I think a few people were wondering, why is he taking so long? Because I want to be sure. I want to get it right. I want to hype and put that little diamond in front of something because I really, really thought about it. And I really, really did. Black Sabbath would be the next thing. Black Sabbath is something that I discovered Planars plays best. Dynamics not so much. Having said that, Sweet Leaf sounds very good on this set. The drum and the bass solo that takes place around 1:20 to 2 minutes. I should be more specific with that. Sounds great. Hearing him go across his drum kit sounds fantastic. The Aussie sounds great. I love the vocals. This kind of where the first peanut gain elevation and then it stops, it is kind of that's the peak, and everything kind of cascades. I've said this before. I'm starting to see a pattern with what I find to be appealing. And it comes to the treble. I like information to go all the way as far as it can, but I'd like whatever comes next to be slightly a slave to what was prior. If 4K is going to be the highest point, I would like 6K to be lower than that, and etc. So this would be 2K dropping a little to 4K. And then it's got its little dip right in the perfect spot for me. Then 8K is lower than the previous peak, and then it's got another drop, but not into infinity. So instruments like cymbals, their life in the fundamental and their death in the harmonic sounds perfect to me. Again, what's the point if that doesn't sound right when it's in almost everything I listen to? Even hip-hop songs have a lot of transitions and hi-hat strikes. They're just mixed in. They're sampling everything. Thanks to Parliament Funkadelic, everybody got into sampling, which is great because a lot of people found old music because they're like, what's that song? I remember that. Because they're listening to hip-hop that sampled an old something. And then people would go listen to the other and be like, that was that. I remember that. So this L9 plays everything in my library quite well. It's made out of wood. It's the most beautiful set in my collection, bar none, of any price range. It's crazy. It's crazy that they did this at $550. All wood. Lacquered. 8 BAs like the Moondrops. Wait a second. No, there's a dynamic in there also. So it's a hybrid 9 driver in wood. $550. Plays my library good. Oh, did I mention Big Boy? The bass on this, like on the L3, which is a very much more balanced type tuning, something that leans more towards like a affordable U12T or something, where it doesn't put too much emphasis on anything. That's good and bad. It depends. It's a less lively replay, but it's I don't know, musical taste. The bass hit on all of the music I just mentioned was not something to really talk about, because it elevated, but not at the expense of vocals, which is what that discussion would be with me. That bass is too much because I can't hear the vocals. It's bothered. That's where that conversation didn't happen. But when I listen to Big Boy, and it's supposed to have a big bass hit, and then the drop bass, and then the next one, like I talked about yesterday, I didn't have that in frame yesterday. Somebody hold it up today. 33 seconds, 39 and 43, 70, 45, 60. About when it drops to right here on this, holy fuck. I said Savage on the L3 must be the same driver, because that bass hit is wicked. If you have anything like this stuff in your library, you fucking would love this. And then if you got the Beatles too, which is right above this, and in my library, Bad Company over here, Dear Prudence, doom, doom. You can almost hear his finger pulling that string. You'll get it back nice, powerfully. Why would you buy the L9 if you didn't like the low end? So if you're sensitive to elevated bass, I guess I wouldn't recommend this to you. But if you're a fan of my library, I think you probably would like the bassist to be where you're used to him being, if you grew up listening to floor speakers and then graduated to whatever was available when you were a kid, and now you're watching my video. Recommend it highly. I think it's absolutely outstanding. Love it. And so that's L9, and I wreck it. How could I not? It plays my music library absolutely fantastic. It's the most beautiful set that I've ever had in my possession. The cable is really, really good. This is the Belon BL05 retail version. This is what you guys are going to be getting. I'll be talking about this probably in the next video. I've already posted a graph. So I'm out.